Currently, "Down with Dictatorship" is being chanted across Iranian universities. Despite reports of up to 30,000 deaths from crackdowns, protests continue and have grown more intense. In this situation, the United States is steadily preparing to attack Iran. Let's take a closer look. Anti-government protests have restarted in Tehran's major university districts after a month. On the new semester's first day, Amir Kabir and Sharif University of Technology students gathered on campus to continue demonstrating. They kept protesting intensely, demanding the dictatorship's overthrow and chanting for Khamenei's death. Social media videos from the university district that day showed protesters chanting, "Long live the Shah," referencing former Crown Prince Pahlavi, now exiled in the United States. During these protests, students continued their demonstrations outside the campus, and in this situation, clashes broke out with Basij militia members under the control of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, leading to violent incidents. Above all, Iranian universities themselves have long served as centers for political activity and democratization movements. It is expected that the protests will continue for a long time. Also, some unique scenes have been observed during the protests in Iran, including clashes between pro-government and anti-government demonstrators. Due to the violent crackdown by Iranian security forces, an estimated 30,000 people have died. The protests in Iran have subsided. The use of heavy machine guns by security forces to massacre protesters has caused widespread shock. However, the inflation in Iran is still in a serious state. Prices are as high as ever, if not higher. Because of this, the protests have resumed. The methods of resistance are also gradually diversifying. In major cities like Tehran and Bandar Abbas, high school students and teachers have gone on a strike called Empty Classrooms. In apartment complexes, chants of "Death to Khamenei" are spreading from inside people's homes, making it impossible to know exactly where the slogans are coming from. In this situation, the United States is increasing pressure on Iran. President Trump set a 15-day deadline for nuclear talks, so a decision is expected by early March. At the same time, President Trump pressured Iran by deploying various military equipment near Iran. So far, more than 120 fighter jets, including the F-35, F-22, F-16, and F-15, have been deployed to the Middle East. If you add the fighter jets on the two aircraft carrier strike groups, there are nearly 200 fighter jets gathered in the region. Of course, during the Gulf War, 1,300 aircraft were deployed, and during the Iraq War, 863 aircraft were deployed, so this number may seem small. However, this is the largest concentration of air assets since the Iraq War. Since the Israeli military will also be directly involved, if you add the number of Israeli Air Force jets, about 550 fighter jets are currently preparing to attack Iran. And so far, there are no plans to deploy ground troops, and except for the case where the Israeli Air Force participates, there is no international coalition either. Have they deployed ground troops to Iran? If they get bogged down, it could remind them of the nightmares of Iraq and Afghanistan. The United States is expected to focus mainly on airstrikes and targeting key facilities. Major foreign news reports say the United States is believed to have finished preparing strikes against Iran. Operation plans are set, targets chosen, and forces deployed. Only the president's final approval remains. Some analyses say that if the White House makes a decision, the operation could be carried out within a few hours. The atmosphere on the ground is tense, and there are even expressions that all that's left is to hold out. United States strategic assets are quickly deploying across the Middle East. Stress! F-35, F-22, and F-16 jets are now forward deployed, with more aerial refueling and early warning aircraft added. Over 2 aircraft carrier strike groups are in range. This force seems too large for mere deterrence. The issue is the cost, right? The daily cost of maintaining a single aircraft carrier in the Middle East for an extended period is estimated to be in the billions of won. When you include the maintenance cost per flight hour for fighter jets, troop rotations, and the supply of ammunition and fuel, the total becomes astronomical. Deploying such large-scale assets and then withdrawing without taking any action is a heavy burden both politically and militarily. The level of deployment is already quite high for it to be considered just a show of deterrence. That's why, both inside and outside Washington, there is a strong belief that an actual strike is likely to happen. Whether it's an alternative airstrike or a precision strike targeting specific nuclear facilities or missile bases, the prevailing view is that some form of action will follow. If the first attack occurs, it could trigger Iranian retaliation and a broader regional escalation. The military forces gathering over the Middle East right now have reached a level that not only poses a risk, but also pressures for a decisive action. Of course, there are also clear opinions that war might not break out. Although the Winter Olympics have ended, the Paralympics are still remaining. The Olympic truce states that if war occurs from 7 days before the Olympics to 7 days after the Paralympics, a country may face penalties ranging from a warning to national team suspension. So, some say that the United States will not take action right now. Also, it's currently the Ramadan period, and during Ramadan, acts like war are prohibited. Has the United States attacked Iran during Ramadan? Some assessments warn this could make the entire Middle East hostile, so caution is needed. What concerns me most is Iran's potential retaliation. Even if the United States or Israel strikes Iran's nuclear facilities and military bases on its mainland, Iran will not win this war. I think that's absolutely impossible. That's because the difference in intelligence capabilities and military power is like night and day. Therefore, Iran is unlikely to start a direct full-scale war, knowing their conventional military disadvantage. Instead, they will likely use the asymmetric tactics they've long prepared. The Strait of Hormuz is crucial, with much of the world's oil shipments passing through. Iran can threaten it by laying mines, launching surprise fast boat attacks, and using anti-ship missiles. Even without a full blockade, attacking oil tankers or causing brief disruptions could send global oil prices soaring. The resulting economic shock becomes a weapon. Another factor is the presence of United States military bases across the Middle East, including Iraq, Bahrain, and Qatar. Iran could carry out limited retaliatory strikes using its ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drone forces. In fact, there have been cases in the past where missiles were launched toward United States military bases in Qatar. Even if there isn't a large-scale direct battle, repeated strikes and drone attacks could greatly increase the burden on United States forces. If massive resources are spent on defense and casualties occur, public opinion in the United States could also be shaken. The key focus is Iran's shadow network, including Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and pro-Iranian militias in Iraq, now forming a unified axis. Hezbollah already has rockets and missiles that can reach all of northern Israel. The Houthis have also struck Saudi Arabia and the Red Sea area with long-range drones and missiles. If these forces move simultaneously, the front line will not be limited to Iran's mainland. Tensions could arise simultaneously in northern Israel, the Red Sea, and the deserts of Iraq. If this happens, the war will shift from a direct United States-Iran conflict to a complex one with sporadic clashes in various regions. A clash that starts at one point could spread to other fronts, making the situation difficult to control. This is the core of the escalation risk. Once it ignites, it's hard to predict how far it will spread. This is Iran's most realistic card for retaliation. Is the third round of nuclear negotiations expected to take place in Geneva on February 26th, Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi also stated on the 23rd that the talks are scheduled to resume in Geneva. Is there a possibility of reaching a diplomatic nuclear agreement in a situation where there are concerns about military conflict? Let's ask Abbas Hara in Iran right away. Foreign minister who worked together said in an interview with Columbia Broadcasting System on February 22nd that there is a good opportunity for a diplomatic solution and that they are coordinating the details of a potential agreement ahead of the resumed negotiations on the nuclear program. He also warned that if the United States takes military action, Iran also has the right to exercise its own power. The United States continues to put pressure on Iran. Axios, a United States political media outlet, reported that if Iran submits a proposal within 48 hours, Washington is ready to meet at any time to begin detailed negotiations. A key issue in the nuclear talks is uranium enrichment. Reportedly, the United States has conceded and accepted Iran's claim that fully stopping enrichment is difficult. Instead, according to The Guardian, Iran has shown a willingness to lower the enrichment level to below 20% under International Atomic Agency supervision. Iran currently possesses uranium enriched to 60%, which is close to the 90% level needed to make nuclear weapons. They are planning to lower this to 20%. So it seems that although progress is slow, negotiations between the United States and Iran are moving forward step by step. However, considering the current deployment of United States military forces, it's hard to interpret this as just a show of pressure. It carries significant weight. The situation is serious, with an aircraft carrier strike group, stealth fighters, refueling planes, and missile forces deployed in stages, all factoring in operational sustainability. It's unclear if this will result in a strike or a last-minute diplomatic agreement, but military tensions are clearly at their peak. So, especially to our viewers currently staying in Iran, I want to say this: if possible, please prepare to leave the country immediately. The local situation can change rapidly without warning, and if measures like airport closures or flight suspensions are implemented, it could become very difficult to leave. Embassies from various countries have already issued notices urging their citizens to pay special attention to their personal safety. Please check diplomatic advisories frequently, and make sure your passport and emergency contact information are up to date. Thinking that you'll be fine is the most dangerous mindset. Preparing for any possible situation is the best choice you can make right now.